If the dream God gives you seems to ruin your life, is it still a blessing? If unjust suffering could be part of God's plan, what kind of attitude should we have? On the day a 17-year-old boy was thrown into a pit, the history of God's world began to move. Jacob returned from Haran and settled in Canaan. That is the conclusion of Jacob's generation. Now the focus of the story shifts to the next generation. Joseph was 17 years old. He grew up tending sheep with his brothers. When he saw their wrongdoing, he reported it honestly to his father. His brothers were often careless and irresponsible. Joseph was upright and diligent. Yet that very integrity became the reason he was hated. Moreover, Jacob especially loved Joseph, the son born to him in his old age. Among all his sons, he singled him out and made for him a richly ornamented robe. In that time, such a robe was not just clothing. It was a royal symbol, a mark of distinction, a sign of being chosen. Hatred began to grow in the hearts of his brothers. It grew so deep, they could not even speak to him peacefully. Yet Joseph was not intimidated by their reaction. He saw clearly and responded honestly. When he received a special dream, he understood it as a revelation from God, and his heart overflowed with joy. He could not keep silent. God gave the dream twice. Joseph spoke of it twice. The first dream, his brother's sheaves bowed down to his sheaf. The second dream, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. The meaning was clear. His brothers understood immediately. His father understood as well. Are you really going to reign over us? Their hatred deepened. His father rebuked him. Yet the repetition of the dream only confirmed that it was from God. The two dreams carried the same meaning. Joseph did not invent them. God's intention was to raise Joseph into leadership and to form a covenant community through him. Joseph was excited. His brothers were angry. His father tried to silence him. The one who gave the dream was God. A wise family would have first considered why God gave the same kind of dream twice. But instead of discerning God's will, they reacted more quickly with hatred toward Joseph. Joseph was different. He treasured the dream in his heart. He kept it with joy. This was not a dream to boost a young boy's pride. It was God's plan to move the history of Israel. When his brothers were grazing their flocks in Shechem, Jacob sent Joseph and said, "Go and see if your brothers and the flocks are well." From Hebron to Shechem was nearly 100 kilometers, not an easy journey. Yet Joseph answered, "Here I am. I will go." When he arrived in Shechem, they were not there. A man told him they had gone on to Dothan, another 30 kilometers north. He could have turned back. But Joseph continued on. Obedience that fulfills responsibility. That was Joseph's character. Yet at the end of the road of obedience, suffering was waiting. When his brothers saw him approaching from a distance, their reaction was shocking. "Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him. Let's see what becomes of his dreams." They were testing God's will. They were trying to stop God's dream by killing their brother. This was not mere jealousy. It was open rebellion against God's plan. Though they may not have realized that the enemy was influencing them, they were already captured by it. Then Reuben intervened, urging them not to take his life. The bloodshed was avoided. Joseph was thrown into a pit. There was no water in it. That detail mattered. The empty pit was God's providence. Suffering had begun, but God's hand was already at work. When the brothers tried to kill God's dream, God had already begun a greater plan. The pit was not the end. It was the beginning. As they sat eating beside the pit, Ishmaelite traders passed by, carrying spices, balm, and myrrh on their way down to Egypt. Perfect timing. Merchants, the direction of Egypt. What looked like coincidence was precise providence. Judah suddenly proposed, "Let's sell him." Joseph was sold for 20 pieces of silver and taken down to Egypt. If God is present, why would he allow this? We ask that question. But this was not merely Joseph's tragedy. It was preparation for Israel's history, the starting point of a vast divine plan. In Genesis 15, God clearly gave Abraham a covenant. His descendants would live in a foreign land for 400 years, grow into a great nation, and later return to possess Canaan. This is where it begins. Without going into Egypt, there is no Exodus. For the sake of the Exodus, God was sending Joseph into Egypt. To protect and multiply Israel, God would use Egypt. In an age of war, this was how a fragile family would be preserved by growing within a great empire. Joseph's suffering was the pathway of covenant fulfillment. A ship caught in a storm may reach its destination faster. God turns crisis into opportunity. He accomplishes a greater history. Are you facing something you do not understand? Are you enduring unjust suffering? Like Joseph, hold fast to the covenant. Meditate on the cross. The more innocent the suffering, the greater the purpose God is preparing. Just as there was no water in the pit, God always provides a way of escape. Joseph's dream became the dream that saved Israel. By forgiving his brothers, he formed a true covenant community. Even in suffering, never lose hope that God's purpose will be fulfilled. The greater the suffering, the greater the hope. God never abandons those who trust in his covenant. Amen.
Genesis 37, 1-36. Jacob lived in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was pasturing the flock with his brothers. He was a boy with the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any other of his sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a robe of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. Now Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Hear this dream that I have dreamed. Behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and behold, my sheaf arose and stood upright. And behold, your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Or are you indeed to rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. Then he dreamed another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, "Behold, I have dreamed another dream. Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him, and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them." And he said to him, "Here I am." So he said to him, "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring me word." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the fields, and the man asked him, "What are you seeking?" "I am seeking my brothers," he said. "Tell me, please, where they are pasturing the flock." And the man said, "They have gone away, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him. and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him," that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. And looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing gum, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. Then Midianite traders passed by, and they drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit, and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. They took Joseph to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and I, where shall I go?" Then they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a goat and dipped the robe in the blood. And they sent the robe of many colors and brought it to their father and said, "This we have found. Please identify whether it is your son's robe or not." And he identified it and said, "It is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him. But he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol to my son, mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Meanwhile the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard.